pulled me out, slammed me against the undercover car, and was like, you guys got the wrong guy. No, we don't, Mr. Paradise. We know exactly who you are. We got the right guy. And, yeah, that's when my life got turned upside down.
Episode 3, Let's Talk Assets podcast. I want to thank everybody for joining in with us. I'm one of your hosts, Chris A. Williams, and I'm joined by my co-host, Giovonni Paradis.
How we doing today?
Great. Gio, how we doing today, man?
Hanging in there, man. And, we're almost to the end of the week, but grind never stops. So, just looking forward to continuing to grow.
Yeah, facts. I always say Thursdays are kind of my busiest day. There's usually a lot going on, prepping for the weekend, trying to get things ready for the next work week. So definitely know where you're coming from with that.
Absolutely.
But that's being said, let's get it kicked off. Today, Gio, we really want to dive into your story, right? We see Gio_Paradis. We see the Camus Group. We see the success. We see the G-Wagon. We see the Teslas. We see the jewelry, the necklace, the tennis. So tell everybody, how did we get here?
Oh, man. I don't even know where to start when you're talking about how we got to where I'm at today. And look, I honestly don't feel like I've accomplished much. I know to the outside world, they look at what I've done as success, but I have a picture hanging up in my house. If anyone's seen the movie Scarface, there's a scene when he was a dishwasher and he was looking out into the night. And I have that picture in my house, and it constantly reminds me of he was a dishwasher, but he knew that he was meant for more. He knew that he was going to be more, but to always keep that dishwasher work ethic and to still have that same grit, that same determination, even when you reach success.
Yeah.
But when you say, how I got here, where do you want me to start?
Let's start from the beginning, man. Let's go all the way back to growing up, like how you grew up, where you came from. I know early in our previous episode, we mentioned that you were from Hampton Roads, but kind of tell us about your growing up in Hampton Roads and such.
Yeah. So, I was born into a very loving family, a very large family. My grandmother was one of 16. My dad was one of 8 siblings. And, I was born, my mom and I guess you could call it my dad, were married. A guy, I'm calling him John. And he was an Italian guy, and they were married until I was about 3 or 4 years old, and they got divorced. We grew up in a townhouse in the Bayside area of Virginia Beach. Not the best neighborhood, not the worst one either. And, so from 4 years old on, my dad used to get me on the weekends, and then, my parents were separated. My dad remarried my stepmom. When I was about 7 or 8 years old, a stepmom kind of, spanked me. I told my mom, and my mother didn't like it too much. And my mom went over there and laid the smackdown on her, put her in the, did her in dirty. But hey, she was just protecting her son. And after that, she pressed charges on my mom pressed charges on her. I really didn't get to, see that man 2 more times. So I grew up. It was at that time, about 7, 8 years old, where I found out that man wasn't my biological father. And that my biological father was Puerto Rican and was incarcerated. When you're a kid, you don't understand these things. You really don't understand, I always grew up around my Puerto Rican family. And I used to always ask my mom when I was a kid, I used to go to my Titi Millie's house when I was little. All my cousins over there, I used to play with them. Obviously, they watched the telenovelas, and I grew up around that culture. And I was like, Mom, how is this my family? They're not white. My mom was like, they're your family. Trust me, that's your family. So my mom knew that was my biological family all along. I just, as a kid, you don't know no better.
Yeah.
And so fast forward, my father, was incarcerated. I really didn't know him. I only met him one time in my life at this point. Fast forward, we're still living in a townhouse. I was raised by as a single mother, and my mom worked 2 jobs. She provided a very good life for me. You know, I was the only child at this time, so it was just me and my mom. We had various roommates. We had a 3-bedroom townhouse. At times, I had to give up my room and share a room with my mom when, you know, times got tight. But look, my mom made it work. My mom gave me a good life. I never went without. I was laced every Christmas, every birthday. So big shout out to you, Ma Dukes, for making sure I was good. She got remarried. I was about 11 years old, my 6th grade year, and we finally moved into a better neighborhood when she got married, and we got custody of my stepsister. And, you know, when I was about 13, 14, my little brother was born. So that was my first biological sibling. And at this time, around 12 years old, kind of bring you back, my biological father got out of prison and moved here to Virginia and started kind of getting on his feet and trying to rebuild his life. You know, my father was in and out of prison his whole life and getting in trouble. And I started to develop a relationship with him. You know, he wasn't real forceful down my throat. And, you know, we were just spending time together. I was getting to know him and getting to learn some principles, things he was teaching me. You know, one thing that he was a street guy. He's from Puerto Rico, from New York, the projects out there. So he grew up very poor, but he always taught me to stay in school, finish school, and the importance of doing well. That was my responsibility as a child, school, right? And, you know, but my father never really could leave the street life. And when you live a criminal life, when you participate in those type of activities, there's only 2 eventualities, and that's death or prison. And unfortunately, at 15 years old, my father was shot and murdered in Norfolk, Virginia. And it was tough on me, man. Not from a standpoint of, you know, I was so close to this man, but it was like, man, I always wanted a father. And I had a father, then he got ripped out of my life, and I found out he wasn't my biological father, and this new guy was my father. And my stepdad was only 14 years older than me. My mom married a guy about 6 years younger than her. My stepdad was a good man, you know, but he was always like a cool uncle to me. But he was a very good man. You know, I never had that father-son bond with him because of the age. And, you know, so when that was taken away from me, you know, I felt like that was a changing moment in my life where I was a really good kid. And after that point in my life, when he passed away, I began to take on a different mindset. And, you know, I graduated high school. Pretty much fast forward, that takes you to when I graduated high school.
So I know you touched on it a little bit, but a pivotal moment like that, you know, your father being murdered, how would you say that kind of affected, you know, your life trajectory?
I think, you know, being immature, being young, you're a kid, you know what I mean? You don't understand a lot of things. You're processing a lot of emotions. I was going through puberty as well. And, you know, I was very defiant. I didn't want to listen to my mom. And, you know, I think it affected, you know, I had some resentment towards my mom when, you know, none of it really was her fault. My mom did everything she could to give me the best life. She can't control men's actions, you know, and I was mad at her, you know, for the actions of men. You know, it's not her actions that caused it. So, you know, I always did well in school, but always got in a lot of trouble. You know, but one thing my mom made me do ever since I was 13 years old, I remember I asked my mom for $20. I was like, Mom, I go to the movies, I need $20. I want to go with my friends. You know, I was a cute girl, I wanted to go on a date. My mom was like, look, I'm going to give you $20, honey, but look, Monday you start work. And this was my summer going into high school. And, you know, I started working laying tile. That was my first job as a tile helper. And, you know, my mom instilled that work ethic for me. So, you know, I still continued to work throughout high school, playing sports and working. But, you know, I got kicked out right before I were to graduate. I got in trouble in school over a very dumb incident. And I didn't get to walk. I didn't go to prom. I literally got expelled in May of my senior year. That was like, I think, the pivotal moment. And like, you know, I kind of spiraled, and it led to, you know, me leaving. I was 17 years old too at the time. I was younger, my senior year. I graduated high school when I was 17, and I moved out of my mom's house, and I moved in to my uncle's house. And when I say uncle, Anybody that knows anything about the Puerto Rican culture, he was my uncle's best friend, but I knew him since I was a child. We call that as part of our family as our uncle. And that at that point, I was 17, almost 18. I turned 18, a few days after I graduated. I got into trafficking narcotics. Was my first introduction into crime. My uncle was a paraplegic, but he had a pretty large distribution of narcotics and didn't fully understand what I was doing. I was young. I just wanted to make money.
Yeah.
I was misguided. And I was go up to New York and, do whatever he asked me to do. And, I ended up, making some very bad decisions. And I went and left and moved to Florida with my aunt. And I wanted to join the military. My uncle was in the military. I knew that I needed to clean my life up. I thought the military was a great way to do that. I wanted to serve my country. It was my dream, to do so. And my past ended up catching up to me. I was 18 years old, living in Florida. Got a phone call from my grandparents, my mom. Cops were looking for me. Ended up having to fly up, turn myself in at 18 years old. Had a whole life ahead of me. Turned myself in, and I was sentenced to 15 years in prison at 18 years old. And they suspended all but 3 years, and I served 2.5 years in prison right out of high school. So it was tough. That was a tough time in my life.
Yeah. So to go back a bit, so things that you mentioned, from 13 years old, you've been working basically. You've been forging your own path. Like you said, 17, 18, also, you're going on your entrepreneurial journey. Now, you weren't doing necessarily the things that, on the legal side, the things that are necessarily approved of, but you were going on the entrepreneurship journey. So do you feel like even though you weren't doing things that you were supposed to at the time, that you learned valuable lessons as far as when it comes to entrepreneurship, being a business owner, business-minded, things to that effect?
Yeah, I learned a lot of principles. I learned how to deal with people. I learned how to mitigate fear. Obviously, what I was doing was very dangerous, very uncertain, very, nerve-wracking. So I learned to calm my nerves. I learned to perform under pressure. I learned to deal with people from all different walks of life. But I was just misguided. And that's why it's so critical, with kids and the young men out there. And even as you become an adult, with the people you surround yourself by.
Yeah.
Because, I didn't really understand, the harm or the wrong of what I was doing. I just thought I was making a quick buck. And, being misguided can lead you down a very, very dangerous path.
Yeah, I can agree 100%. So do you feel like if you had, the knowledge and education and maybe like a mentor or someone that you looked up to being able to guide you, you wouldn't have necessarily went down the wrong path like that?
See, the unfortunate thing for me is I had that person in my life.
Okay.
I had my grandfather. He raised me as his own son since I was born. My grandfather was an amazing man, but, I never kind of accepted him as my father. He was my grandfather, right? And he was an engineer. He retired for the Navy, did a full career in the Navy as a civilian engineer, and then he went and worked in Washington, D.C. as a government contractor. He's a very good man, very good father, very good grandfather to me. And he was a very good role model, gave back to the community, very active in the church. I just never really accepted him as my father. And if I would have gravitated towards him when I left my mom's, home, I would have turned out a lot different.
Yeah.
I don't look on it as regret, but, I was young. My grandparents never rejected me, but I did. I understand their viewpoint. I put them in a rough spot because my mother is their daughter, and it's like, hey, they take me in when she's kind of at odds with me. Yeah. It puts them in an awkward position. So, it's not that they weren't taking me in, but I just stayed away. And I thought it was funner. The money, the cars, the girls, being 18 years old and kikiing high, and I was distracted, man, just like any other youth person. They don't know what really matters in life and what's important at that age.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, so we talked about, going back to your timeline of your story and such. You are, 18 years old? You just got sentenced to prison.
Yes,
All right. So what then? Because I know the people are wondering, okay, all these things have happened to you up to this point. How do you get to where you're at now? So let's continue with your timeline.
So I did 2.5 years in prison. I got out when I was almost 21. I was 20 years old. I moved to the mountains of Virginia. I had an aunt that lived in a little small town outside of Charlottesville called Stuart Strat, Virginia. And I couldn't get a license because I got a bunch of speeding tickets before I turned 18. And so I went and got a moped, and I was working as a commercial plumber at 20 years old, driving to work in the rain and a moped, snow, up hills, mountains. It was the struggle, bro. I mean, I lived in a good home, with my aunt. But again, me being an adult, me and her started kind of clashing as far as, she was very conservative on using utilities. I was using the dryer, washing clothes, like just little things, which, hey, it's her house. When you're an adult and you're in someone else's house, you got to abide by their rules, regardless of what their relationship is to you. If you don't want rules, you got to go out on your own.
Mm-hmm.
You got to support yourself. You can't be living under someone's roof and think you're going to dictate what goes on. So I knew that. I love my aunt and I respected her enough where I decided, like, look, I'd rather preserve my relationship with you because I love you and I appreciate everything you did for me. And so I moved out and got a basement apartment with one of my buddies. He was serving tables at Chili's, and we moved to a little town called Stanton right next to an all-girls college and had a little basement apartment, still riding my moped. And I found a better job manufacturing granite, kind of fabricating it, polishing it to go in people's homes. I was getting paid, pretty decent money, was still on the moped rocking out, man. So the struggle was real, man.
Yeah. So when did timeshares come into place?
So at this time, I'm like 20.
Right?
Yeah. So at this time, I'm like 20 years old. And I think my story kind of coincides with yours. When you were working at Foot Locker, or the timeline, I'm like 20, 21 years old. I'm just like, I knew this wasn't it. I used to ride the moped. I used to close my eyes and I used to listen to that song. And I knew I was meant for more. I didn't know how I was going to get there, but I knew I knew I was very good at talking to people. I know I was very good at presenting myself. I was very good at talking to people. And I knew I was always smart. I love to read. I love to learn. So I'm like, I got to move back home. And that's where, I miss my family, my cousins I grew up with. So I moved back home. I needed to find a job. So, hey, Craigslist. Craigslist was a good friend back then. I went to apply to pass out flyers for an auto repair shop. I showed up. I was dressed up in a sports coat and some jeans and some penny loafers. And the guy's like, man, you really handle yourself really well. I want to give you an opportunity to be my service manager, which is basically like the manager of the shop.
Okay.
And so I started doing that. Anyone knows the auto repair industry, it's kind of a grimy business.
Yeah.
If you're not working for the right people. I didn't feel good about what I was doing. Had an opportunity. Again, it's kind of the same story. I went to apply at a car dealership to post ads on Craigslist. The guy, my very first day, talked to me. When I got hired, the general manager came and said, look, here goes $50. Go down to DMV, take your salesman's test. Go get your license to sell cars. Took it, I passed. Boom. Started selling cars. I'm like 21. And I also started working at a nightclub at this time. So I was working in VIP, bottle service, table service, kind of managing bottle girls, selling sections at a hip-hop nightclub down at the oceanfront, Virginia Beach, and selling cars, man. I was kind of living the dream, to be honest with you. I was driving a demo. I was driving a different car every day, every week. Mustang, all the stuff when you're 21 years old is cool to you as a kid, right?
Exactly.
And so, I thought I made it in life. The dealership I was working at, the general manager, and again, you're young, so I'm going with the flow, but you start seeing things for what they are, and, the writing on the wall. The general manager had some habits that were hindering his ability to run and operate that business, and that business looks like it was going to fold. As someone told me about Gold Key, timeshare at the oceanfront. I went and interviewed, and they hired me, and I quit. I quit selling cars. I'm like, this is what I'm going to do, and went into that environment, man, and went through deep sales training and thrived, man. And I really loved timeshare.
Yeah. Okay. So that's pretty good progression, I would say. So being that you love timeshare, why not stay in timeshare? Like, what made you transition to real estate? Because you were seeing success from a real young age, like you're saying, like 2021, high position in the car business, clubs, things
Yeah.
like that. Then timeshare, you say you're pretty successful in
Yeah.
timeshare. So what made you switch to real estate?
So mind you, when I got hired at Gold Key, it was a quote unquote mom and pop company, a very large company. But mom and pop meaning it was local ownership. It was owned by people here. And mind you, I'm a convicted felon. I did prison time. I'm a convicted felon at this point in my life. My company that I worked for got sold to Diamond Resorts International for $163 million. And so we went corporate. I got onboarded with corporate, went through HR. I actually sold some of Diamond's product when we went through the transition. One day, it was a little over 20, about 20, I think 27 of us got called into a big room for a meeting. It's random. And we all had different resorts we worked at throughout the ocean front, right? These people were on different sales lines. We all got called into a meeting room. It was really strange. We didn't know what was going on. And so basically it was like a cattle announcement. And hey, look, everybody, due to your criminal background, you no longer are employed here.
Oh, wow.
So they laid all of us off.
Wow.
Right then and there. I was making $10,000, $15,000 a month at 23 years old. I thought that was what I was going to do for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
I was in line to move up to management the following year based on my performance. But yeah, man, they laid us all off. And
So you're telling me you were a top performer for this company. You were bringing this company lots of money, and randomly one day they decided to just fire you.
all of us, yeah, as corporate.
Wow.
So because I was a top producer at the old company, and I was still producing when we changed over. It was a big change going from a local company to a corporate company. HR, a whole types of structures changed.
Yep.
Right? You're dealing with a very large corporation. So they laid all of us off, man, and it was a kick in the gut to me, man.
Yeah.
Because I was doing the right thing in life. I was on the up and up. I was in a serious relationship. I thought I found my career. I had something that I enjoyed. I love talking to people.
Yeah.
I love talking to people about vacations. I love traveling. So it's like, man, this is like the dream career for me, and it's actually paying me really well. And kind of the rug got pulled out from under me, man. It was tough.
Yeah, 100%. So that's crazy to me. So like I said, you were doing literally everything that you were supposed to do, but because you didn't have any power, you didn't have any control over that company, they can get rid of you literally whenever they choose to.
In an instant, bro.
Yeah.
My whole life changed. And so I sold cars. A good buddy of mine, he owned a car dealership. I knew, and I did business with him. I still had a salesman's license. I hung it with him. That way I could still get paid for clients. I still had a network of people that wanted to buy cars, and I trusted him to take care of them. And a buddy of mine had been pitching me to get into real estate. He owned a brokerage, and I've known him since I was a kid. He was my mom's friend's husband, basically, and his name was Ryan Finch, and he had one, little brokerage on Virginia Beach Boulevard. And so I went and sat down with my friend that owned the car dealership first and interviewed. I got to figure out what's my next step, what's my next move. Car dealership was an easy path. I knew the business. I was already licensed. I was instant boom. And he was like, hey, let's, I take care of you, we'll see how you do and we'll talk.
Yeah.
Which is cool to me, right? But it's like, there's no vision there.
Yep.
But I trusted the guy, liked the guy, and I'm like, okay. And anyone in the car business can testify, it's a grind, bro. 10-hour days are necessary in that business. So I went and sat down with Ryan the same day, and I asked him the same question. It's funny, he's basically kind of interviewing me, even though he told me, hey, you should sell real estate months prior. But I said, where do you see us in 5 years? Where do you see you in 5 years? How do I fit into the picture?
Yeah.
And this was back in 2016. And he said, I'm going to have one location here. I'm getting ready to expand. And then I'm going to franchise my business. I'm going to have locations all over the country. You as an agent need to go through your natural progression, buyers, sellers, mix of both, investors, become a team leader. Boom is like you'll have opportunities to move up, be a part of the expansion, the growth, maybe take on new locations. he kind of painted his whole vision for me.
Yeah.
And, I was like, boom. I already had a deep personal relationship with the guy. I already had a lot of love and respect for him.
Yeah.
And, he's a very fun guy to be around, very, very, humble, generous guy. And so I said, where do I sign up?
Yeah.
And so, boom, I entered real estate school, right away, took the test, boom, passed right away.
Mm-hmm.
But something happened.
Tell us, what happened?
Well, what do you think? What happens after you pass the real estate test? You got to go through what in order to get licensed? At the PSI exam, what do they do to you?
Fingerprints.
They fingerprint.
Yeah.
So obviously I notified them that I had a record, right? So my file, because I was a convicted criminal, I had 3-time convicted felonies, 3 felonies. And so my case, this was December when I passed the test. I had to wait to go to kind of a committee hearing, which is like a panel.
Yeah.
Where they kind of have up in Richmond. After I passed, I basically plead my case, had references, tell them about my crimes, how have I changed my life since those crimes.
Mm-hmm.
And, they vote kind of yes or no, whether they recommend the board that I should have a license. And so they voted yes, but I had to wait for the board to convene. So this was not till May when the board was meeting next.
Wow.
And so it was not until May that the board voted and I was awarded my real estate license.
Yeah.
Probably, honestly, one of the happiest days of my life.
Yeah.
Just a huge accomplishment.
Yeah, that's like 5 months you had to wait, wasn't it?
Yeah, man, and it was tough. And mind you, at this time, I'm 23 years old. My apartment at the oceanfront, I was living in a luxury apartment, was $2,000. I had a luxury studio in DC, was $2,000. Car payment, lifestyle, traveling. My expenses were a lot. So I got involved in things during that time while I was waiting to see what I was going to do for my career, things I shouldn't be doing. And I ended up acquiring weapons to protect myself.
Mm-hmm.
As you know, in this country, once you're convicted of a felon, you lose your Second Amendment right.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's why I shouldn't have been done. Fast forward, though, I got licensed again. At that point, had removed myself from anything that I shouldn't have been doing.
Yeah.
I was living life on the up and up. It took me about 2-3 months before I started making 5 figures in real estate. After I got licensed. I was doing very well. I had some very great mentors, great leadership when I got into real estate. A lot of people that gave me the training, gave me the path, and I put in the work. I was doing about 4 or 5 transactions a month. Some stuff I was doing even off market. I had an investor I was working with. We were flipping a bunch of houses, and that's kind of how I cut my teeth in the business as an investor's agent and a listing agent. I really worked with buyers. I referred those out to a special lady on my team that was really good at giving that close attention to those buyers, clients. And, look, I honestly thought I'd made it in life. This is it. I mean, I was, again, making more money than I was in timeshare with less hours, more time freedom. I saw the vision. My life was increasing, man. Just got a house. My girlfriend lived with me. My cousin was living with me. It was nice. It was beautiful. I thought I literally had at 25 years old. I mean, this timeline now, I'm about 25 years old now. I had everything I wanted.
Yeah.
Had a career, had a woman I, was dedicated to, family that loved me, kind of had the American dream, man. I mean, there's not much more you could ask for at 25.
You had accomplished all that as a 3-time felon too.
Yeah, I never see. I have cousins and different family members that have also been in trouble with the law, and they've used their background as a reason why they can't be successful. I never even thought that I had felonies. I treated my life that way. I knew that it was a hurdle, but it made me work harder because I knew I had to present myself that much better than my competition because of my past.
Yeah.
Now, I knew I couldn't become a police officer, go work for the government, be in the Navy or anything. That's practical, right? But, I knew that there's a lot of things I still could do regardless of having a record in the past. It was all about just, sheer willpower and applying myself and, presenting myself in a way that I could be an asset to somebody's company.
Yeah. You found a solution. You took accountability for what you did wrong. And also, you didn't make excuses.
Yes, sir.
You went and found a solution and did what you needed to do. So, okay, we're 25 years old. You know, you're very successful in real estate, making at least 10,000 a month from real estate. All right, what next?
I've got a house. I bought a house, and I never had a house before. I always had apartments, condos. So I never had a yard. I had a big yard. I had a corner lot. It wasn't a big house, but I had a big yard for me. And worked a lot. You know, real estate, I was putting in 50-hour work weeks, grinding. And, you know, I hired one of my neighbors. He lived 2 doors down. He had like a little lawn care company. You see him pull up with the truck. He had the trailer, all the lawn equipment. He walked over. He said, you know, he saw my grass was logged. He's a salesman, good salesman. He said, hey, man, cut your grass. Boom. So this guy was cutting my grass. And one day he hit me up to get paid. I was grilling in the backyard. It was summer, and I was cleaning out a 357. I had a handgun.
Mm-hmm.
And he asked me, I was like, man, that's a nice, you know, it's nice. Can I see it? So I gave it to him. And he asked me would I sell it to him. And I was like, yeah, sure, man, you know. Because at that time I had a bunch of weapons, and I shouldn't have had, you know. But, you know, someone put it in my head that, you know, I understand if you have a gun to protect yourself, but I had weapons of war. I had, you know, heavy, you know, machine guns and stuff like that, and stuff I shouldn't have had. You know, I was like a boy with his toys.
Yeah.
They weren't, you know, I wasn't in crime anymore. I was not involved in anything illegal. I was doing what's right. I was living right. And so I sold him that weapon, you know what I mean? And he left, and a couple of days later, he asked me if I had something else. So I had a Spike Tactical AR-15. I ended up selling that to the gentleman. And next day or two, I was dressed up in a suit about 8 o'clock in the morning. I was going to a closing, very excited, right? And as I'm going on the on-ramp to the interstate, there's a van driving in the wrong direction, and it turns sideways like in a movie. And there's another van that comes behind me, along with 2 cop cars, all undercover, barricade me, and about 15 SWAT members convene on me. Summertime, I got the windows down, my sunroof. I had a white BMW. I had guns pointed through every window. A guy climbed up on the hood of my car and pointed a gun through the sunroof. Was literally inches away from my head. I froze. I had no idea why SWAT was coming to get me. Because mind you, and you know, anybody that's been on the other side, I was out of the criminal mindset. I wasn't thinking like a criminal. Because if I was thinking like I was a criminal, I would have never done business with that guy.
Yeah.
But to me, you know, I'm a suit and tie guy now. You know, I'm a legit guy. I'm, you know, doing what's right. I'm living right. You know, I was involved. I was getting involved in the church. I was going to men's group. I thought I was making all the necessary changes to grow as a man and to be a man of value and a man of honor. So I was very confused.
Yeah.
So they slammed me, you know, pulled me out, slammed me against the undercover car, and was like, you guys got the wrong guy. No, we don't, Mr. Paradis. We know exactly who you are. We got the right guy. And, yeah, that's when my life got turned upside down. Come to find out, that guy who I sold the gun to, my neighbor, a few months before I moved into that property, he got busted cooking meth. He's a meth cook in a meth conspiracy, so he was out on bond as a police informant and setting people up. And
Oh, wow.
that's how I got jammed up. I was arrested by the city of Virginia Beach. I had a city case, and I hired a high-power attorney. I didn't get bond at first. It took me a couple weeks. They let me out on a $100,000 bond, you know, and I had to go start fighting this thing, man, and see what my options were. And, you know, things weren't looking so dismal. I looked like I was going to do a year or two in the state system and, you know, it'd be done with. And I was like, hey, that's the worst thing that comes out of this. I'll survive.
Yeah.
You know, it's manageable. I've been through it. Yeah, do I want to go through it? No, but when you've already been through that storm, you already know what to expect. I was older, you know, so I was like, look, I made the mistake. Time to pay for my mistakes, and you know, I fall, but I'll get back. Unfortunately, the government had different plans. I was supposed to sign a plea deal with the state government, so I walk into my lawyer's office thinking that I'm signing a plea deal as far as, you know, hey, we're going to go over the terms of it and stuff like that. This is what they're presenting, offering me. And he goes, sit down. I'm like, no, I got to go. I got, you know, stuff to do. Let's talk. Let's go. He's like, look, man, you just need to, you know, here, take a drink of water. You need to, you're going to be indicted by the federal government.
Wow.
The ATF is picking up your case. You're going to be indicted by a federal grand jury. You know, you need to understand the severity of this. And if you've ever played sports and got the wind knocked out of you, I got the wind knocked out of me without nobody touching me. The whole air fell out of my body. The blood fell out of my face. And I just was like, you know, because for people that don't know, you know, when before you think federal, like you're thinking big time.
Yeah.
Like kingpins, mafia guys, like high profile. I'm like, feds. I'm like, I'm a nobody.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a criminal anymore. I'm like, what do they want from me?
Yeah.
Like, why would the Fed? I didn't understand, right? And so lawyer fees doubled pretty much.
Yeah.
And now federal government. Anybody knows the federal government has over a 90% conviction rate. You're not going to trial against the federal government. You're going to take a plea. And so, you know, I took a plea. You have guidelines. You know what I mean? I pled guilty to 1 gun count, felon in possession of a firearm. It sentenced me to 6 years in federal prison. So 2017, it took everything from me. My freedom, house, money, car. I lost everything. My girl. It was tough, man. You know? It was tough. Lost everything. I basically made it in life. I escaped. I was like, I made it. I'm doing the right thing. I made it. And it was all taken away from me and by my actions. So I wasn't bitter. I wasn't mad at anybody. You know, I remember when they walked me back after I got sentenced and they put me in that bullpen and I was in that cell quiet and I knew it was going to be a long journey.
Yeah.
But I knew that they trapped my body, but they weren't going to trap my mind. And I spent those 5 years. I read thousands of books. In federal prison, I was around a lot of wealthy people, man. People with $100 million net worths. I was around a billionaire. I was around people with MBAs from Harvard, doctors, chemists. You're around a different type of people.
Yeah.
Sophisticated criminals, people that are just very smart business people. So I learned a lot from that, learned a lot from books. I studied the stock market, you know, learned all about that, learned heavy and, you know, studied heavy and numerous topics that relate to business that I'm in today. And so I got out in 2022 and I'd moved to Massachusetts, man, and was going to start my life anew there, man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I love what you said, you know, even though your body was trapped, your soul and your mind wasn't, you know. You took your situation where many people would have just quit, you know, they would have just been like, man, you know, my situation sucks. Like, this is what it is. Like, whatever, you know, my life is over. No, you said specifically you read thousands of books. You positioned yourself around people who were successful. Now, they made mistakes to get in there just like you did, but you position yourself to be around these people, to learn from them, to take knowledge from them. Because as we know, prison is a vast place. You know, you can be around the criminals who aren't necessarily doing anything with their lives, that don't want to see better, but you position yourself specifically not around those people, but the successful people, and took their knowledge, and you were able to intake their knowledge and also apply their knowledge because you knew you were getting out and you had a specific plan for what you were going to do when you got out. So I definitely, you know, applaud you and salute you for that.
I appreciate that, you know, and I read a book called No Easy Day. It was written by a former Navy SEAL, and he had a mantra, and I had this thing written in Sharpie, in a big piece of paper, and I posted it in front of my mirror when I got up every day in my cell. It said the only easy day was yesterday. And so I live that every day, and I still take that with me today, is the only day that was easy is the one that you already went through, which was yesterday, because every day has its own challenges that are unique to that specific day. So, you know, you take it one day at a time. And, you know, the thing about growth and, you know, getting in, when you're in a situation like that, is acceptance. And that's to me, is the tenement of being a man, is accepting your mistakes, accepting the responsibility of your actions, and then getting yourself back up on the horse and rebuilding your life. So as a man, no matter what you go through, you have to accept responsibility for the circumstances you're in. And then now it's on you to make yourself a success out of that. And so I took responsibility, man. I didn't blame nobody. I didn't point the finger. I looked at that man in the mirror and I went to war with him. And I said, You got a lot of changes to make. I had to change the way I thought. Had to change, I was very out of shape when I went to prison. I was 25 years old. I was out of shape. I was built like a, Mr. Potato Head, and I wasn't taking care of my health. I was drinking, partying a lot, eating bad food. And so I physically, mentally, spiritually, I kind of went to war with myself, man. And, I'm still at that same challenge today. It doesn't end, but, and there I had a lot of time when it was just me and my thoughts.
Yeah.
To work on myself, man.
Yeah.
So, I want to chime in because you're nailing it right now, right? One, I commend you for your vulnerability. Some people will leave some stuff out, but one of the biggest things I want to ask, because I believe you have the thought process to help save somebody who's about to quit, right? So, what was your from? I want to even go back from the early 20s, right, to when you were in the prison system last time. What was your mental state at to keep going? So the person that might scroll on this and say, man, F it, I can't do it, right?
Yeah.
What was your mental state at?
So my mental state at the time, my father was murdered when I was 15. I also lost one of my closest cousins. We grew up together. He was murdered when I was about 23 years old when I was working in timeshare. That hit me hard. We were 6 months apart. And when I was in that cell, locked down, caged like an animal, I could have cried. I could have complained, right? But I knew that they would have given anything to have another shot at life. It wasn't over for me. I had a release date on that paper. I did not have life. I was incarcerated with people with life. I had a release date, and everyone had a paper. I had a release date, and I read another book, and on that, again, big on books, big on quotes, and the quote, if you fall on your back, it goes, if you fall on your back, because if you can look up, you can get up. And I knew that I fell on my back, but I knew I had another chance. And I never cursed God, not once. I never blamed him. I always prayed to God just for another chance. That's all I asked him for. I just want another chance at life to do things right, to do things the right way, to live my life right, and to live my life by principles that I know I was raised in, because I was raised by a good family. My family did not raise me to be a criminal or to participate in those type of activities. So for me, my state of mind was, that I couldn't quit, you know what I mean? And, I had a little brother, who I let down, I failed by going to prison, and, I don't have children right now, because of, the amount of time I spent incarcerated. So he is the closest thing to a child to me, and he looked up to me. We're 14 years apart. So I knew that I had to stay mentally sound. I had to be there for him as he was a teenager going through some of the things I went through with our mother, and guide him. And I knew I had to get out and set an example for him, set an example for all my cousins that are younger than me, and for the generation to come after. Man, it's bigger than me, and I have people that believed in me. And so my state of mindset is, how can I give up when other people still believe in me, even when I'm incarcerated? Who am I to give up? And you got to understand, man, if you're free, you just have to dig your feet in the sand and look at yourself in the mirror, go to war with yourself, and not quit, because it's not over. You got another shot, man. You can literally come from nothing. Understand, the people that are listening to this, 2 years ago, I was incarcerated in federal prison. Incarcerated. 18 months ago, I was literally at zero. I had nothing. I moved back from Massachusetts after a failed business venture with one of my cousins, who's a multimillionaire, very successful. He went through a divorce. His new fiance and me did not get along. It did not work out. They did not trust me. They did not believe in my dreams. They told me they were too big. I walked out of that office, left that city with nothing. I packed up a Toyota 4Runner with my whole life in it, spent what little money I had, moved back home, slept on my cousin's couch, and I started my life over, man. This was June of 2022, so less than 2 years ago. I was literally at zero, man. I was homeless. Literally, I was homeless. I was on federal probation at the time, but I had an address. I was staying with my cousin, and, big thanks to him for taking me in. And, I picked myself back up. But you have to understand, as a man in this world, no one's going to feel sorry for you, man. You got to take what you've been through and let that motivate you. Everything that happened to you, because so many people go through life and say, I can't be successful, or I can't make it because of X, Y, or Z. But that you have to find your why. What is your why of what makes you go so hard? And my thing is I've lost it all, man. I've been at zero. I know what it's like. So now I'm afraid to lose it. That's why I work so hard. I have a family that I want to take care of. I want to show people that no matter how hard you fall, you can get back up. You can pick yourself back up. You can make something of yourself. You can help other people around you, because I don't measure my success about my bank account. I measure my success about how everyone around me is doing and how I've elevated their lives and increased their lives. I want to bring everyone with me, the people that started with me, people like Chris that, when I first met him, I was at zero. This was all a dream. This everything I'm doing, everything that I've done, it was all, a dream. So that mindset, to answer your question and wrap it up, was, if you fall on your back, because if you can look up, you can get up. It's not over. You know what I mean? It's not over. People would pray to have another chance at life, pray to have a fresh start. And even if you have no money, you still can have a fresh start. I had no money, I had a fresh start. I got out, I had no family, no rich parents, nobody to give me money, nobody to say, hey, here goes this, get on your feet. Here goes a car, here goes money for your bank. I didn't have none of that. Yeah. So, I did have love though. And so I don't discount, love and support. It is a lot. It does go a long way. So big shout out to my mother, my grandparents, my cousins, my family, my aunts, uncles, everybody that injected positivity in me. Talk that positive talk, You got to surround yourself by people that talk positive. Don't beat you up for your mistakes, but talk about solutions, how you can get better and how you can improve.
Yeah, 100%. So like you mentioned, another chance, another opportunity. Would you say the Camus Group was your another chance, another opportunity? And also, you kind of want to tell the people about the Camus Group, some of the amazing things you've been able to do with the Camus Group ever since you got out in 2022.
Yeah, so I started the business with my partner. He was already a successful businessman, and we kind of shared the same vision. And, we started I had a couple deals under contract when me and him kind of hooked up. I had a kind of a longer relationship with him. Wasn't really tight, but obviously we're very close now, and very blessed to be under his mentorship. He's older than me, way more seasoned in life, and I've learned so many lessons in the very short time from him. It's helped me hockey stick as far as an entrepreneur. And we hooked up with two other young guys that shared the same vision, and I knew I couldn't do it alone. And at the same time, I hooked up with you, Chris, and hooked up with some other amazing agents, and we built this amazing real estate team. And we did over 40 million our first year as a real estate team, and we did over 60 million our first year, and netted over 7 figures on the off market as a business in our first full year operating. So, I never chased the dollar signs this time. I'm just chasing a vision and helping elevate as many people around me. And, now we've expanded the Camus brand. We're in Richmond, Northern Virginia, western part of Virginia, down in Jacksonville, moving into Orlando, Tampa area as well. So constantly expanding. And I'm blessed to have a platform. I'm blessed to be able to help people and share my passion of investing in real estate with the rest of the world.
Yeah. And you did this all as a multi-time felon, as a person whose father was murdered as a child, who has seen loved ones, murdered and stuff. You didn't let any of that stop you. You kept on going no matter what you got faced with in life, and you progressed and constantly grew. So definitely big shout out to you, Gio.
I appreciate it, bro. Life is 20% of what happens to you and 80% of how you react to it. And so we're all gonna, get knocked down. It's can you pick yourself back up, and can you stay mentally resilient and see your dreams through the finish line?
That's all, folks. That's what we're going to end on. This was an amazing episode of Let's Talk Assets podcast. Gio, I want to thank you again for sharing your story.
Thank you.
I know this is definitely going to be helpful for some people. Make sure if you guys found this helpful to comment. Let us know if you found this helpful. Reach out to Gio. You can reach him on Instagram, Gio_Paradise. You can reach out to us also on Instagram at Let's Talk Assets Podcast. Want to thank y'all for the time again. Let's talk assets.
Peace, y'all.